hear me? Hello. Yeah, I think I think you can. I have recorded this 3 times now. So, I think it's going to get interesting this time through. This is my first voiceover video for YouTube. Welcome. Welcome to the inside of my mind. I am working on a painting that you will be watching. It's real-time video. I'm really digging this teal blue. I created these interior paintings a couple weeks back, and I wanted to do some real-time painting videos because I know that I get real caught up in things moving fast. Everything now moves fast. There's video for everything. It's time lapse. It's quick. And it tricks me, at least, into forgetting that paintings take time. It is a test of wills, a patience game. We are being patient with the process. Whenever I'm making paintings, I am asking myself to chill out, right? Like I need to be here and present with the materials in front of me. And so I wanted to make sure that the videos I'm creating for YouTube, not all of them will be like this, but I do want to include ones that are like this. So this particular painting is on 300-pound Arches hot press watercolor paper. I love 300-pound. I've been doing a lot more 300-pound paintings. It's very expensive, not for the faint of heart. But hot press is not something I normally use. And I created these interior paintings as a way for me to play with watercolor and gouache and acrylic gouache all together. Highly recommend if you're trying new materials to give yourself a series to work on as like a container to have those experiments within. But anyway, so you'll be watching me make this. If you don't want to hear my voice, throw on some music, put me on mute, who cares? I'm going to answer a couple of questions that were submitted to me by my patrons. We do a live stream every other week. And I find it's way more enjoyable for me if people submit questions ahead of time, or I ask questions in the chat, or answer questions, or ask them, who cares? But anyway, so first question is from Monica. Monica says, question, you have a very unique way of drawing people. How did you arrive at that style? Knowing that a style is constantly evolving. Did the style evolve naturally, or did you push yourself to try out specific different things? I love this question. I love it because my style when it comes to people, and this is, a great plug moment for me to say, if you haven't read Find Your Artistic Voice by Lisa Congdon, highly recommend. Pretty sure Monica did read it. That was one of our books of the month for Patreon. But I think the thing that I love about painting people is that I did learn traditionally how to do realistic drawings and paintings of people. I did that in college here in San Francisco, and it's taken me a long time to let that go. I was in college back in 2011 and 2012, and in 2015 I saw a show at the Virginia MoCA of Amy Cutler's, and I had an aha moment where I realized that I wanted to create people that were not based on or that we're using reality as like one tool in the tool bag, right? Like I wanted to create a world of characters that I could use to explore different concepts and ideas. So I wanted to kind of move away from worrying about whether or not I was painting people in a realistic way. And move into a place where I'm not, that's not the question I'm asking anymore. I think in any like creative practice, you have to ask yourself, like, what questions am I excited about exploring? And that was what I wanted to let go of. I wanted to be more playful with how I was painting and depicting bodies and people. And it was hard. It was hard, and it's still hard sometimes. Well, it's not hard for me to do it with people. Sometimes I'll use my own body as a reference for maybe a weird pose or how I think something might look behind or around something else. But a lot more often, I'm happy to be playful and for unexpected things to happen with the shapes and ways that I'm creating the people I'm painting. And that, I think, has just come with time, with how I like to paint, So it's evolved alongside my evolution of how I've approached paintings. My paintings are a lot more illustrative now, and I think that happened in a way where I didn't even know that that's what I was doing. I was interested in illustration without realizing that that's what I was interested in. I am 36. I started painting in high school, but I really went back to school when I was 26 to study painting particularly. Before that, I had studied photography, and then I just kind of like painted as a hobby. So this is over a long period of time that I've figured out how I want to do this. And I am sure 10 years from now, I will be doing this differently. If I'm not, like, someone please tap me on the shoulder and tell me I had hoped to evolve. So, couple of ways that I kind of like pushed myself to evolve was through kind of like not using references, maybe using feelings more. How do I feel in my body? How do other people's bodies like move through the world? The cool thing is, and I say this in my in my Your Hand Is Not a Camera class, is that we are all experts and having bodies. We've had them our whole lives. We've had bodies. It's wild. So I think what's cool is if you can tap into the feeling of being a person who exists, there's a lot of really interesting things that you can do. I also realized that I wanted to be more humorous in my work, and that bodies was one way I could do that. So I love like Shel Silverstein. I love Amy Cutler. Like I said before, I love Joachim Nordstrom. I love artists who, Mama Anderson. I'm trying to think of some, Marcel Zama. Who are some other ones that I'm thinking of? There's millions, but all of the Philip Guston, these are all artists that from an early age, and I was obsessed with miniature paintings. When I was a kid, my mom took me to Berkeley Art Museum. So these are all people and artists who use realism as one tool, right? In a large toolbox. So, what are other tools that they're using? They're using surrealism. They're using, dirty, dusty brushes that are chunky and imperfect and force them to be uncomfortable. They're using flatness. They're using shadow and light against flatness. They're using, they're using like scribbly, scratchy pencils, thinking of Joachim Nordstrom. They're using a lot of different tools in their toolbox to approach mark making and people, and almost like the people are secondary in a way, like whether or not the person looks like a person is less important than if it feels like a person. And this is my opinion. You're watching my video, so I might change it, but this is how I'm thinking about it. This is something that I'm thinking right now, today, on Monday, September 27th. So I might change my mind, but I'm thinking that that's really what I find compelling is the feeling of being human, not necessarily the showing of being human. And so that's what I've been trying to explore. And so then finding different ways to explore that has been fun and playful for me because it's coming from this softer place of feeling. And there's no right way to feel, right? So letting go of correct and incorrect, letting go of right and wrong is hard, especially because I did study, realism, studied anatomy, studied the anatomy of drawing, and did realistic painting, hyper-realistic self-portraits for a long time with colored pencil. And I have plenty of friends who still do realism and do beautiful, incredible paintings. And that's wonderful. I just realized that for me, I needed to twist it a little bit for me to talk about what I wanted to talk about, right? So Hopefully that answers your question, Monica. I think it's such a good one. I do think it's both. Like, I think that style evolves naturally. It comes from showing up regularly, from showing up as much as you can, as often and consistent as you can. Obviously, what that time allotment is or what showing up looks like for everyone changes. For me, I've definitely centered my art making in everything I do. I worked in restaurants for the last like 15 years in order to focus on my art. That was something to support my art. So, which I think is a really great transition into our next question. But I just wanted to say, really wonderful question. And, just keep in mind that I'm a human being who is allowed to change my mind, and so are you. So, if you have questions you want me to submit, definitely be sure and post them in the comments below. But next question, let's do it. All right, so we have Sonia sent me a message and wanted to ask a question. Let's see if I can read. I have a couple of questions, all in the same thematic. I would love to hear how and where you are searching for new paid gigs, and what is your general approach to business and business development in the art world. I know it's always changing, as it is changing for me, but I would love to hear your ways. I kind of touched a lot more on how I'm searching for new paid gigs and things like that in the live stream, but I didn't necessarily talk about business and business development. So I thought I would touch on that here. I really think about what I'm doing in this way, and this is what I use when I'm talking to creative mentoring clients or students of mine, is the way that I like to think about it is that my art practice is the seat of a stool. It is the seat of a chair. It's the tabletop. That's the center of everything I do. I want to ensure that I have time and space and money to practice my art however I see fit. And I don't feel like I don't want to ever feel like in my art practice that it has to make money. And this is like my personal paintings. It's like the painting I'm making right now that you're watching me make. I want to be able to make that without worrying that I can sell it. And that's really important to me. I think that it alleviates me from feeling like I have to make a particular type of work. It allows me the space to experiment. So how can I do that, right? For a long time, I worked in restaurants as a means of making that possible for myself, because I was developing other areas, and that was a surefire way for me to ensure that my schedule is flexible and that I could make an income, and so that my partner and I could work opposite schedules, so that I had like alone time to be able to make that work, because I was working in my apartment. The other way that it can look, like now that I don't work in restaurants, the reason I was able to leave the restaurants was because I created different legs to support that seat, right? So if my art practice is the seat, or if my art practice is the tabletop, it needs like 3, ideally, pillars of support. So initially I was on a bar stool and I had 1 pillar of support, and it was my restaurant job. But once I left the restaurant, I really felt like it was necessary for me to have 3 different income streams. So the first income stream was client work. The second income stream was teaching. And then the third income stream was like, selling originals, doing gallery shows, having like print sales, etc. And that shifts and changes. That third one, I don't sell prints quite as much. Now I do my Patreon, so that's kind of like taken the place of that. And that feels good. So how do I choose which things fill those slots, right? So for me, what's really important in my practice, in my paintings, is joy and community. And I mean community on a local level. Like, I mean community as in connection to other people. That's really important to me. I think that it's something that has shown up for me in a lot of different areas of my life. It's really important for me to feel connected to the people I'm surrounded by. It's also really important for me to feel like my work is bringing people together. So when I take on clients, I like to encourage students and people who are seeking some advice or guidance from me to look locally, like who needs your work, who can benefit from what you do, where can your work exist in your immediate world. So those are places I start there, and I really try to expand upon it in a way that feels, I don't know, like I'm meeting some of those needs. So either I'm working locally, I'm collaborating with someone, I'm creating work that feels like it's challenging me. Sometimes the client jobs that you take on, you get to work bigger than you ever got to work before or would get to work on your own. So it needs to meet one of those criteria. A lot of times when I was first starting out, people would ask me to do work and it wouldn't meet those criteria, but I was broke, right? And that's why I had my restaurant job, so that I could say no to those jobs, and reserve that creative energy for the things I do want to do. Saying no to jobs feels scary, but I do think it's important to center what's important for you. Like, what are you excited about? What do you like doing? When it comes to my practice, I think my client work needs to meet some of those criteria. Either it's a local business I'm excited about, or it's in a public like space. I would love to do like a mural at like a pool or a library or something like that. Some sort of like public works thing that feels like it would be tied into that. And then it can kind of like guide me to when I say yes and no to stuff. The other thing I like to think about is like, how can that apply to prints, or if I'm having a sale or whatever. I love making prints with businesses who, work or live locally or are friends of mine. So I've done risograph prints in the past. I love how each one feels unique and special. And I collaborated with Outlet. I hired them. They printed a bunch of them for me. Outlet's in Portland. It's a place I visit a lot. I took my first risograph class there. I also recently did a print through Aesthetic Union, which is a letterpress print company here, owned by my friend James, who is an incredible artist. So that's kind of where I start, and that's how I center those choices. And then, I think just like any business or any sort of creative entrepreneurship, it's easy to kind of like get lost or feel confused about whether or not something lines up with those things. So I try to write those things down. I keep it somewhere. I have like a journal, but you could write it and put it on the wall. I've made lists before. So then when I have a decision about whether or not I want to take on a client or I want to work on this project or whatever, I can kind of ask myself, does it meet me at any one of these spots, right? Is this an area of growth that I've been wanting? Is this gonna allow me to pay for that new studio or buy that new camera or whatever. Anyway, I hope this is helpful, and this, like I said, first time I'm doing this, and hopefully we'll do it again. Thanks for being here, and I'll talk to you soon.